Hi everyone, it's Michelle from Country Morning Creations, and I'm back with a tutorial. This shouldn't take very long. I had a couple of people when I posted about this book on Instagram and that I had stuck a file folder in the middle of it. Several people asked me to do a tutorial, so I'm back with the tutorial on how to make one of these folders and then attach it into your book. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So what I did, this is another printable from the Navy and Roses from Dot Studio Design. I'll post that link below. But you can do this with anything. You don't have to use theirs. I actually reduced this to an 80% size so it would actually fit inside of a journal. If you leave it too big, it won't fit. So I made this one a bit smaller. If you don't have that, what you can simply do if you use printables, this is just vanilla cardstock or manila colored cardstock. It's the off-white. And I simply printed directly onto the cardstock. If you really want to get fancy, like I did for my, this was my file folder ephemera holder. I actually then printed on the other, I guess I printed this on paper and attached that to the inside, so you could do that. Or if you're printing it, you could also just print on the inside and then you don't have to attach anything to it. So those are some different options that you have. I chose not to print on the inside. I was actually trying to conserve ink. I'm almost out of ink and I need to get more ink. But those are some options. If you think about a regular file folder, even the decorative ones, the inside is blank. So that is completely fine. I'm going to turn this around this way though. So what I did on the one that was inside this journal is I made a pocket on the left, and on the right I used a Tim Holtz plate. So we're going to, let's do the easy one first, which is to make the pocket on the left side. All I did was to take a piece of cardstock, and it was the colored cardstock, and then I want to mark this real quick so that I know that I go at least beyond this, because what I'm going to use to cut this is actually my 3-inch hole punch. And that should cut out enough of this that you actually won't see this when it is closed. And actually, I think what I'm going to do is do this. I'm going to actually mark the top and bottom so I go beyond that as well. So one of the things that I've learned over the years is if you just punch like this, you can't tell where you're going. So one of my tips that I've learned is that you want to actually flip it over, and that looks mostly centered, but I don't think I'm quite centered either. So I'm going to probably chomp out a little bit more, which is fine. And then I leave the lids on. A lot of people take those off. Again, a lot of this comes down to what do you like to do. And that will just go right in here now. And you'll see that it leaves room that you don't see this through that area. You don't see it coming through on the back side. Now the other thing I used was the Tim Holtz pocket. This is a Tim Holtz pocket. I think I got this from scrapbook.com, but there's all kinds of places where you can grab it. It is a Thinlits. And one of the things I just recently bought myself, and I don't even know how I was doing this before it because it was always frustrating. I bought this magnetic platform off of Amazon, and this is amazing for using these very thin dies. I used to put them on, because I would put multiples on. It was a nightmare. They would shift. Some people said to tape it, so then I tried taping it. It just got to be too hard. And I saw this on Amazon and said, okay, this is what I need. So if you don't have this and you use these dies a lot, you seriously need to get this magnetic, ooh, it's really strong, this magnetic platform. Now, when you use the magnetic platform, you do have to use these are my very beat up I can't even think of what these are called, but you want to use these. So you can see on here that you have both of these here, and then your paper and your die, and then the magnetic area. And they actually show putting the die above the paper, so we're going to give that a shot today. And you'll see these are not straight, mine warp. And I read somewhere that they won't work if you're warped, but I've had no problem using them, even though they are warped. This is even some of the tape I'd been using trying to tape things down. So let's just throw something down here real quick. We're going to put this one here, and I'm going to just line everything up, and you can see the magnetic platform is going to hold that. And then I'm going to use a piece of this for the other part. I'm just going to tear that off. So we're going to do it this way so I can see and line up. I want that polka dot in there somewhere. Let's try something like that. And then because this is now warping this way, I'm going to flip this over this way to hold the top down. And we're going to just run it through. I have the Big Shot. If you have some other machine, this actually works for a variety of different machines. So if it'll fit, kind of if it fits, it ships. So I'm going to just run this through. Yep, it makes some massive popping sounds. Don't freak out. It's just the plastic. And you can see this is actually one of my newer ones. This is not the old one. Those I've pretty much used a ton out of. So then we just pull those off. And we have our die cuts. So let me set this aside for now. And I'm just going to put this back up here for now. We're going to pop all of this out. Ta-da! And now we have our pocket for the other side. Now, if you don't have a Tim Holtz thing, you don't have all this stuff, you could actually go ahead and cut this all out with a craft knife. There's nothing that says you can't. You could simply grab a ruler and line it up on these different lines and make your lines and then cut them out. I would recommend if you make lines, you do them on the back, and then you can make your own, and then you can make it as big or as small as you want. So the next thing I'm going to do is, yeah, this is the boring part, but I'm going to go ahead and grunge up, if you will, all of this so that we have it, and it looks I think it looks prettier with all of that. Some people do, some people don't. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to. As Nick the Booksmith would say, I'm not your mom. And just doing a little cleaning. So my favorite is gathered twigs. I love this gathered twigs. It's darker than your vintage photo. So I like it. I just like the patina it gives much better. And there's tons of different shades out there now. Tim Holtz just keeps coming out with more and more and more. And these are specifically made to go with the distress inks. So these are, I don't know if this is scrapbook or if I got this from Ranger, but either way. And I just do it at an angle and go around whatever it is I'm grunging up. And some people pick it up and do it this way too. I think that works just as well if you want to do it that way. So whichever way works the best for you. I think I get my best results when I do it down on this is parchment paper used for baking. So my husband had a bunch of it left over and gave me some of that, and that just works really well. All right, there's that. Last but not least, we're going to use this, and we don't want this to just blend away into the background since this is also the color of the inside. Oops, I'm doing the wrong side, aren't I? Nope, that's right. We don't want it to blend away into the cardstock that's on the inside as well. And then I go back and go ahead and grunge up these pieces that are in the middle here. and kind of go around it. We don't have to do the whole thing, but if we go around it, then when we glue this on, that just goes in there. And we have this, and then last but not least, let's grunge this up. I'm going to actually do the inside as well as the outside because I just like that look. And so we're just going to go real quickly around here. I find that if I keep rotating this a little bit at a time, then, and you have to be careful because now you can see I'm pushing too hard on one side. You want to just really keep it even all the way around and not push too hard one direction or the other, or you do get these circle swirls, which some people may like. And I just keep twisting this as well and using the ink from all the different sides since you're kind of going down it. And then I like to do this middle piece as well, and I just take it, fold it in half, and run this right down the middle like that. And then we're going to go ahead and do the outside as well. Just going all the way around this just real quickly. And this is the Distress ink. There's also Distress Oxide. I have the same color in the Distress Oxide. They are different. Tim Holtz has a fabulous video explaining all the differences between the Distress inks and the Distress Oxides and all these pads. And I think he's even come out with some Ranger colors that are permanent ink. I don't think this one, even once it's dry, I think it can be you can hit it with water and it may run a little bit, but it is acid free. So if that's important to you, that's what you want to use. Now, the last thing we're going to do is go ahead and glue these in. I was debating about doing something, but I think I'm going to just leave the cover of this plain. I think it's really pretty, and then there's no really stuff on the outside, no extra stuff. I'm going to actually put this in one of my journals as kind of a bookmark, and it can be used that way, and I'll show you that as well. I'm going to use the Art Glitter Glue. I held off buying this for a really long time, but what I really like about it is it's a fast grab, as well as you get this really fine tip. Just bought it straight off of Amazon. Oops, sorry about the hitting the thing. And then to get a really good straight line, I lay everything on the table, and then I rest my hand on the table. I find that if I don't rest my hand on the table, I cannot get a good straight line, and then it's all over the place and I don't get the full use of my pocket, which is a bummer. We don't want that. We want our pocket to be fully used. So again, you're not gluing the inside, just around the outside edges. And we're going to come over here and plop this right on this side. A little bit this way. And that gets glued down. We're going to go ahead and glue this piece to the front of this. And this, of course, is completely optional. On some of the ones, I actually just used a ticket that I'd punched out instead. Which way do we want this to go? I'm going to go this way. So now we have the repeat from the other side of the polka dots, which I adore. I really love polka dot Swiss. Love all of those things. Now for this one, you do not want to glue this middle part or else you cannot stick things down inside of it. Again, I'm going to just run the glue along the edges and keep my hand in a real steady state. This is also a good trick for when you do, if you do makeup. I actually learned this trick from doing makeup, which was to either rest my cheek or rest a finger on my face so that I didn't get makeup everywhere. So there's your tip for the day, using makeup, a makeup trick. So I just go all the way around the edges like that, and then we're going to glue this down here as well, just like that. And now you have the Tim Holtz. This is the Tim Holtz one. Again, like I said, you can make it bigger. You could add another pocket just like this. You could add a pocket across the bottom to tuck tall things in. However you want to do that, you can. One of the things I find really limiting in using a die cut is that I'm limited to the size of how wide these slots are. You could even take a whole piece of cardstock and just cut slots in it, and then you have great places to stick things. So a whole lot of different options you can absolutely do in making your own one. So for this one, I am simply, I think I want to do this though. I'm really in love with right now, it's all Yvonne Preston's fault, I will tell you that. I did not like butterflies when I first started doing this, and now I love them. And I just want to put a little butterfly here. It's not going to be a tuck spot. I'm going to go ahead and just glue the whole thing down. But I just love butterflies, and I want to add that to this as well. So we're going to get that all glued up. And just pull up that right there. Adds a little bit of interest to otherwise a very large piece of cardstock that's one color. So that adds a little bit. You could even add another thing up here that could be another tuck spot. All kinds of things you could do. You could fill up the inside, and then I just leave the outside blank, and that makes that a lot easier. And one of the things I did was, again, I took one of these postcards, and one of the cool things about this kit is these postcards are actually attached to each other, so you could cut them apart and make a journaling excuse me, you could make just a journal card, or you can fill it with different papers, and that's what I've done here. So that I am going to tuck right in on this side, and then I will go back and fill all kinds of things in on this side. Then this will get used in this journal, and I'm going to add it. It's a surprise. The person who purchased this doesn't know they're getting it. Shh, don't tell anyone. But this can go right in here. And what's nice about not sewing it in is then it can be used just as a bookmark, and it can go anywhere in the book and can be moved around, or it could be taken out altogether. So that's where that one's going to go. Last but not least, I did want to talk just a minute about I just want to take a minute to put this back in, because if I don't, this dries out. I wanted to talk a minute about how I sewed this in. So when you get into the middle of the journal, I was using a 5-hole pamphlet stitch, so I punched this as though a regular signature was going to go in. You can see they're all like this. To me, it was really important that the signature and that I attach both ends, because I worry that if I only did the 3-hole pamphlet stitch, which doesn't mean you can't do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch that runs from here to here to here, but excuse me, let me get a drink of water real quick. But I think it's really important that when you put this in for stability, that you go beyond the edges. So you would just sew this into, if you're doing a multi-signature journal, you would do it that way. If you were doing a single signature journal, I recommend you make this the middle of the signature and just sew it right in. Just make sure that you go beyond the edges of your folder so that the whole thing is really secure and is in there. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that you can see all the options you have when making something like this, that you can really add a lot of stuff. So for example, in this one I have the tag, I have just a journaling card, I have a couple of tickets that I've added. So anyway, I hope that this helps for those of you who are wondering how I did that. And that's how I made it start to finish, and that's how I sewed it in. And hopefully that really makes a difference, and you can do that for your journals as well. And I hope that you've seen something today that has inspired you to be creative.